Unit 7 Popular Uprisings, Second Half of the 19th Century. 7.0 Objectives. After going through this unit, you will be able to know the factors responsible for various peasant and tribal uprisings that took place in the second half of the 19th century, discover the nature and main characteristics of these uprisings, understand the attitude of the colonial regime towards these uprisings, know how the working class emerged in India, explain the problems faced by the working class, know about the initial struggles waged by the working class, and understand the importance of these struggles. 7.1 Introduction. The English were able to suppress the uprising of 1857, that is 1857, but this could not end the feelings of bitterness towards their rule, particularly amongst the peasants and tribals who had to reckon with the oppressive character of the regime in its severest form. They were exploited by both the colonial government and the landlords because the latter were now looked upon by the government as natural leaders of the people. In many regions, the peasants and tribals rose in revolt against the British. In this unit, we have attempted to familiarize you with some of these uprisings of peasants and tribals. With India becoming a part of the British Empire, more and more British capitalists invested their capital in India to extort profits. A few modern industries were established after the introduction of railways. As a result of this limited industrialization, plantations and railways there emerged a new social class, the working class. Initially, this exploited class had no means to organize itself or raise its voice in an effective manner. But soon, the workers started resisting their exploitation by British capitalists and European planters. The unit also deals with some of these initial efforts made by the workers towards organization and thereby raising them against exploitation. Before beginning our discussion on the popular movements of peasants, tribals, artisans, and workers in the 1850, that is 1850, to 1900, that is 1900 period, a few things may be clearly stated. Any discussion of the theme we have chosen should take into account the colonial context. This period roughly coincides with the second phase of British imperialism, that is, the industrial capital phase. The earlier phase, normally characterized as the commercial phase of British imperialism, was based on trade and commerce. This phase saw the development of industrial, capitalist exploitation of India. 7.2 Colonial Impact. One has to bear in mind the impact of British imperialism on Indian agriculture and the traditional handicraft industry. 1. As for agriculture, the land settlements that are permanent, Rayatwari, RaiYatwari, and Mahalwari, Mahalwari, created certain new elements like a market economy and did away with some customary rights like forest and pasturage, PASTURAGE rights. The agrarian, AGRARIAN policies, coupled with other developments, encouraged money lending, particularly in the context of cash payments of land revenue. In the context of sharpening social differentiation, money lending got associated with a complete control of the rural economy and society by a few money lenders. And if it was a tribal tract, this interaction also implied the process of peasantization, PEASANTISATION, that is, conversion of tribals into peasants. 2. Secondly, social differentiation was not a new feature, but colonialism accentuated the differences and created a sharper polarization between those who owned lands, had acquired wealth, and through their new ownership rights had access to the courts to defend themselves and their property, and those whose customary rights got undermined. This differentiation had certain implications. Besides strengthening and polarizing, these differences centered around class, that is, rich and poor. Differences around caste and religion also got strained. For example, if in a particular area the landowner belonged to a particular caste or religion and the peasants were of another caste or religion, then the caste or religious differences got strained on account of class differentiation we have noted above. Tribal areas saw the emergence of outsiders who were moneylenders and landlords and who ruthlessly exploited the population. 3. Another major aspect of colonial policy was to forcibly commercialize agriculture with the obvious idea of providing raw material for British industries. This proved hazardous for the peasants who were forced to grow commercial crops like indigo and cotton instead of food grains, even in years of scarcity. 4. As for the artisans, colonialism spelt doom for them. The colonialization of India implied that India was to be a market for British goods. These were factory made goods, cheaper and finer than the products of the India artisans. This led to the wiping out of the traditional Indian industries like cotton and salt. Besides throwing a large section of the artisans out of employment, it increased the pressure on land as the artisans tried to turn to agriculture. 7.3 Peasants, Tribals, and Artisans. Before we proceed further, it would be useful to mention at this juncture a few things about the peasants, tribals, and the artisans. 1. When one talks of peasants, one is referring to all those people who directly participate in agricultural production. Some of these were poor and some of these were comparatively more affluent. AFFLUENT. This differentiation increased in the colonial period. Besides, the peasants' positions sank vis-a-vis the owners of lands since colonialism recognized the property rights of only the landlords, the peasants having been reduced to mere tenants at will. The new laws implied that the peasants could be evicted EVICTED at any time by their landlords. 2. As for the tribals, there were different tribal groups like Khonds, KHONDS, Savaras, SAVARAS, Santals, SANTHALS, Mundas, MUNDAS, Koyas, KOYAS, Kols, KOLS, etc. When we speak of tribals, we are not talking of the classic food gatherers and hunters, but tribal peasants who had settled down as agriculturists. Of course, they combined agriculture with hunting and food gathering as well as manufactures from forest-based products like canes, etc. The relative isolation coupled with closer ethnic bonds perhaps differentiated them from peasants. 3. The artisans were those people who were engaged in the manufacture of traditional handicrafts like cotton products, salt, iron goods, etc. In most cases, these were pursued as caste professions. As already discussed, the unequal competition with the British industrial products ruined the artisans. Historical evidence about them is extremely limited. These were often clubbed with the peasants and tribals. Exercise. Check your progress 1. Question 1. Which of the following statements are right or wrong? 1. The agrarian policies of the British encouraged money lending. 2. The customary rights of the tribals were encroached upon as a result of British policies. 3. The induction of British goods in the Indian markets helped the Indian artisans. 4. By peasants, we mean all those who directly participate in agricultural production. Question 2. Write in about 5 lines how colonialism accentuated social differentiation in Indian society. 7.4. Popular movements up to 1857, that is 1857. We can now begin our discussion by taking up some of the major popular movements among the peasants, tribals, and artisans in the 1850, that is 1850, to 1900, that is 1900 phase, known as Fituris, Fituris, Melis, Melis, Hools, Hools, and Ulgulan, Ulgulan. 7.4.1 Orissa. In the early 1850s, we come across some tribal movements in Orissa. There were popular movements among the Khonds of Ghumsar, Ghumsar, and Baud, Baud, from 1854 to 56, and the Savaras of Parlia Khemedi, Parliakhemedi. These popular movements were attributed to Chakra Bisoi, Chakra Bisoi, Bisoi, who, since 1837, that is 1837, had resisted all attempts to arrest him. The specific problem among the Khonds centered around the determination of the colonial administration to stop the human sacrifices associated with the Meriah, Meriah, sacrifice. What is worth noting is that the new pressures and uncertainties forced the Khonds to appease APPEASE, their gods, for good harvests of turmeric, but the colonial administration tried to stop this practice. Some colonial officials hoped that the improvement of material conditions of the Khonds would serve to liquidate the Meriah sacrifice. Very little is known about Chakra Bisoi and the early tribal movements. Bisoi took up the cause of a young boy whom the Khonds believed was the Raja of Ghumsar. We get references to Khonds attacking some villages in Ghumsar in 1854, that is 1854, and how they refused to betray Chakra. In a desperate attempt to crush the rebellion, the police arrested a mendicant, Mendicant, by mistake, thinking that he was Chakra Bisoi. It seems some landholders and ruling chiefs, that is of Patna, Patana, and Kalahandi, Kalahandi, who felt threatened by colonial rule, maintained links with Chakra. In 1856 to 57, that is 1856 to 57, there was the Savara rebellion in Parlia Khemedi, led by one Radhakrishna, Radhakrishna, Dandasena, Dandasena. The colonial administration saw links between this movement and Chakra Bisoi, who could never be arrested. Nothing was heard of him after October 1856, that is 1856. He seems to have faded into popular memory after the Savara rising was crushed with Dandasena's hanging in 1857, that is 1857. However, there are doubts whether Chakra Bisoi was behind all these popular movements or whether his name came to be associated as a symbol of popular tribal protest. 7.4.2 Santhal Rebellion. Yet another major tribal rebellion was among the Santhals from 1855 to 57, that is 1855 to 57, of Birbhum, Birbhum, Bankura, Bankura, Singhbhum, Singbhum, Hazaribagh, Hazaribagh, Bhagalpur, Bhagalpur, and Mongir, Monghyr. The colonial character of the regime contributed to the precipitation of this conflict. We get references to some merchants and moneylenders from northern and eastern India completely controlling the existence of Santhals through interests on loans, with rates ranging from 50%, that is 50, to 500%, that is 500. These exploitative people used two types of measures, a big one, bada ban, to receive things, and a small measure, chota ban, to give things to the Santals. They also grabbed lands of the Santals. Some of the intermediaries, INTERMEDIARIES, of the zamindars were also ruthlessly exploitative. We also get references to recruitment of forced labor and the sexual exploitation of tribal women at the railway sites. When the movement started, it was not ostensibly OSTENSIBLY anti-British, but was directed chiefly against the Mahajans, MAHAJANS, and traders. The Santals declared that they knew God had directed them to collect and pay their revenue to the state at the rate of 2 annas on every buffalo plough and half anna on every cow plough. They also fixed interest rates on loans which were to be on the lower side. The Santals were punished for night attacks on Mahajans, whereas their oppressors were not even admonished. ADMONISHED. Rebellion burst forth in 1854, that is 1854, with an increase in the number of dacoities, DACOITIES, burglaries, thefts of Mahajans whose wealth was ill-earned. It was in such a context that two Santals, Sido, SIDO, and Kanhu, KANHU, offered the spark which resulted in conflagration. CONFLAGRATION. They received the command of their god, Thakur, to stand up and defy their exploiters. On June 30, that is 1855, that is 1855, 10,000, that is 10000, Santals assembled at Bagadihi, BHAGADIHI, where the divine order that the Santals should get out of the control of their oppressors was announced by Sido and Kanhu. The idea that their god would himself fight along with them gave the rebellion a legitimacy, LEGITIMACI, and in popular tribal perception labelled it as a struggle of good against evil. As the movement gathered momentum, the way in which the context determined its forms is indeed interesting. From an essentially anti-Mahajan and anti-trader movement, it incorporated a new element. The Santals made no secret of their opposition to the police, white planters, railway engineers, and the officials, thereby revealing their opposition to the colonial order as well. The movement lasted for 6 months. Many villagers were attacked by the Santals after being given prior notice. A lot of pressure was exerted on the zamindars and the government by the rebels. In many areas, the zamindars helped in the suppression of the rebellion. 7.4.3 1857, that is 1857. After this, we can say a few things about the 1857 rebellion without going into details of the rebellion itself. There is a controversy among historians regarding the level of popular participation in the revolt. Some scholars like Eric, ERIC Stokes, STOKES, point out how the rural elite whose interests had been threatened by the colonialism led the peasants and artisans who followed them tamely. The common resentment against the oppression of the moneylender united the peasants and the artisans. British rule was defined as Bania, BANIA, ka Raj, and the rebellion marked an opposition to the moneylenders as well as the British. Along with this was the erosion of customary rights and privileges of the peasants. The forms of popular protest reflect the combination of the twin currents of anti-imperialism and anti-feudalism, FEUDALISM, which had emerged at that particular juncture. Symbols of foreign rule such as police stations, railway lines, and telegraph wires were destroyed. As for the popular movements which converge, CONVERGE, With the 1857, that is 1857 rebellion, we get evidence of the destruction of records. In fact, we are told of the debris of account books which reflect the obvious opposition to the new taxation system. Although the Europeans were the first targets, they were followed by attacks on their Indian supporters like moneylenders, auction purchasers, bankers, and traders in some regions. In this phase, we also get reference to the dismantling of factories in Shahjahanpur, Shahjehanpur, Shahibabad, Shahibabad, Gaya, Gaya, and Palamau, Palamau. Although our evidence is severely limited, this indicates typical reactions of artisans in early industrial societies who saw a threat posed by the arrival of new machines. This trend can be seen in early industrial England in 1830, that is 1830 as well. With the disappearance of British authority, the concept of freedom drove the peasants and artisans to seize the lands and plunder the houses of the affluent landed sections. Their property deeds and government records were also destroyed. This situation altered the nature of the rebellion. Thus, people like Kunwar Singh, a big landlord who led the rebellion in Bihar, stopped his followers from indulging in such acts, as otherwise, after the British withdrew, there would be no proof of the rights of people and no evidence to determine the amount due from one party to another. Exercise. Check your progress too. Question 1. Match the leaders with the movements they were connected with. 1. Chakra Bisoi. 2. Sido and Kanhu. 3. Radhakrishna Dandasena. A. Savara Rebellion. B. Khonds of Ghumsar. C. Santhal Rebellion. Question 2. Discuss in about 5 lines the problems faced by the Santhals. Question 3. Which of the following statements are right or wrong? Statement 1. The Khonds appeased their gods for good harvests by offering sacrifices. Statement 2. Radhakrishna Dandasena was rewarded by the British. Statement 3. Zamindars helped the British in suppressing the Santhal rebellion. Statement 4. There is no controversy among historians as to the level of popular participation in the revolt of 1857, that is 1857. Statement 5. Artisans welcomed the coming of machines. 7.5. Popular movements after 1857, that is 1857. Popular protests did not end with the suppression of the 1857 uprising. We find a number of movements taking place after this and shall discuss a few of them. 7.5.1 Indigo Riots. The Indigo Riots of 1859, that is 1859 in Bengal, is the next popular movement we shall examine. Indigo plantations had been set up as early as 1770, that is 1770, by the East India Company. The planters relied on physical coercion, coercion, and legal manipulation to force the peasants to grow indigo at a loss. This created a lot of discontent since the peasants could not grow food grains which they needed for survival. By 1859, that is 1859, thousands of peasants had withdrawn their labor, formed organizations all over the indigo plantation districts, and resisted the repression of the planters and their armed retainers. The contemporary newspaper like the Bengali, Bengalee, gave due coverage to the movement and reported how it was marked with success. Dinabandhu, Dinabandhu Mitra, Mitra, wrote Nil Darpan, Nildarpan in Bengali, which highlighted the plight of the peasants. The Indigo riots forced the government to set up an official inquiry in 1860, that is 1860. The movement also knocked down the plantation system in Lower Bengal, forcing the planters to shift to Bihar. 7.5.2 Moplah MOPLAH Uprising. In the 1850, that is 1850, to 1900, that is 1900 period, we also witness a series of Moplah uprisings in Malabar, MALABAR. As the Genmi, GENMI landlords backed by the police, law courts, and revenue officials tightened their grip over the Moplah peasants, and the latter rebelled against the landlords and the British, it is not surprising to see how what was essentially a rich-poor conflict between the Genmi landlords and the Moplah peasants was given distinct communal coloring by the colonial state, since the landlords were Hindus and the peasants were Muslims. The landlords resorted with repression, which continued unabated, UNABATED, till 1880. In their attempts to smother the peasant movements, they also burnt the bodies of the rebels in order to produce a demoralizing effect. Scholars like D. N. Dhanagare, DHANAGARE, have pointed out how these acts made the peasants retaliate. In 1875, that is 1875, an anonymous petition of the Moplah peasant was submitted to the Madras government, which led to an inquiry. However, between 1882, that is 1882, and 1885, that is 1885, there was a renewal of hostilities with the peasants looting the property and burning the houses of landlords, as well as defiling Hindu temples. These acts gave an anti-Hindu turn to what was essentially a class conflict between peasants and the landlords. By 1896, that is 1896, the Moplah peasant struggle assumed an aggressively communal orientation. 7.5.3 Pabna, PABNA. Another important movement was the Pabna Peasants Movement of 1873, that is 1873, to 1885, that is 1885 in Bengal. The peasants of Pabna did not object to rent hikes, and in fact, between 1858, that is 1858, and 1873, that is 1873, they met the rent demands of their landlords without any resistance. At the root of the movement was the tendency of the zamindars to annihilate ANNIHILATE, the tenants' newly acquired occupancy right. Occupancy tenants were being converted into tenants at will through forcible written agreements. The peasants' growing knowledge of the new laws made them aware of their plight. Then there was the problem of illegal dues in some places like Tripura. In 1873, that is 1873, the Pabna peasants formed an agrarian league which spread out in the entire district very soon. Most of the newspapers which were pre-landlord opposed the league. What is worth noting is that the peasants did not defy the colonial authority and declared that their goal was to become the Ryots, RYOTS, of the Queen of England. They were opposed to the harassment and not to the payment of dues. They wanted to be the Queen's Ryots for securing redressal, REDRESSAL, of their grievances. In fact, in the initial stages, we get references to a sympathetic colonial administration supporting the peasants in cases against their landlords. As the movement developed popular forms of mobilization, that is, blasts from conch shell, drum beats, etc., brought people together to resist the illegal demands of the landlords. By night shouts, all the people in the villages expressed their solidarity, SOLIDARITY, with the movement. Kalyan Kumar Sengupta, KALYAN KUMAR SENGUPTA, has stressed the legalistic character of the movement, with instances of violence being very rare as the peasants were primarily interested in defending their property and holdings. As the movement gathered momentum, the oppressors tried to hit back. Given the fact that the majority of the peasant activists were Muslims, they painted it as a communal movement. What is worth noting here is that two prominent leaders of the Pabna peasants, Kesab Chandra Roy, Kesab Chandra Roy, and Shambhunath Pal, Sambhunath Pal, were Hindus. For nearly a decade, from 1873, the Pabna peasants' movement undermined the landlords' perception of their right to fleece the peasants. Besides, the movement also spread to other areas like Dhaka, Dacca, Rajshahi, Rajshahi, Bakargunje, Bakergunje, Faridpur, Faridpur, Tripura, Tripura, and Bogra, Bogra, etc. 7.5.4 Deccan Riots. The basis of the Deccan Riots, which erupted in 1875, that is 1875, lay in the evolution of the Ryotwari RYOTWARI system itself. We come across the emergence of a class of money lenders who fleeced the peasants through high interest on loans from 25%, that is 25, to 50%, that is 50. The decline of the collective system of tax collection implied that, unlike in the earlier days, the money lender was not subject to the executive and judicial authority of the village. The courts and the new laws polarized the caste differences between the Vanis, VANIS, village moneylenders, and the Kunbis, KUNBIS, cultivator caste, by favoring the former. This implied an increase in the transfer of holdings from peasants to moneylenders. The immovable property of the Kunbi could also be sold to recover loans. Along with these problems was an increase of the population, the dislocation of the economy, and an ill-conceived attempt to enhance rents by the colonial administration. It was in this situation that things took an explosive turn. The young Brahmin leaders of the Poona, POONA, Sarvajanik, SARVAJANIK, Sabha, SABHA, and the dominant landed families which faced decline took up the cause of the peasants. The Kunbis rose against the Vanis in order to dispossess them of their title deeds and mortgage bonds, which were looked upon as instruments of oppression. The Deccan riots resulted in the breakdown of the link that held the Kunbis and Vanis together. Like the pattern we have noticed earlier, class conflict was given the form of caste conflict. 7.5.5 Koya, KOYA, Rebellion. In 1879 to 1880, that is 1879 to 1880, there occurred the Koya Rebellion in the eastern Godavari, Godavari, tract of present-day Andhra Pradesh, which also affected some portions of the Malkangiri, Malkangiri, region of Koraput, Koraput district in Orissa. It was led by Toma Dora, Tommma Dora, the Koya leader. The movement reflected the problems faced by the tribals, like the erosion of customary rights over forests, the exploitation by money lenders who began to control the life of the Koyas through loans and land transfers. Toma Dora was hailed by the Koyas as the king of Malkangiri. We find references to the taking over of a police station at Motu, MATU, by the rebels. However, very soon after this, Dora was shot dead by the police and the movement collapsed. 7.5.6 Birsa, BIRSA, Munda, MUNDA, Revolt. The last popular movement that we shall discuss developed between 1874, that is 1874, and 1901, that is 1901, and was led by Birsa Munda from about 1895, that is 1895. A tribal movement, it affected an area of about 400, that is 400 square miles in the Chota Nagpur region of South Bihar. Born out of the basic problems affecting the tribals in the colonial period, erosion of customary rights, forced labor, colonial laws, etc., it had a distinct connection with Christianity in the early phase. As K.S. Singh notes, the Mundas, in fact, accepted Christianity with the belief that the German missionaries would set things right by checking the malpractices of the zamindars. In fact, around 1857, that is 1857, some zamindars attacked the German mission at Ranchi as it sympathized with the Mundas. From around 1858, that is 1858, we get references to Christian tribals resisting oppressive zamindars. This trend became quite pronounced between 1862, that is 1862, and 1888, that is 1888. In 1867, that is 1867, as many as 14,000 Christians filed a petition against the Raja of Chota Nagpur and the local police and submitted it to the colonial authorities. Some steps were taken to restore lands of some of the dispossessed Mundas. In March 1879, that is 1879, the Mundas claimed that Chota Nagpur belonged to them. In 1881, that is 1881, some Sardars led by one John the Baptist set up a kingdom at Doesa, Doesa. After this, the movement went through some major changes. Dissatisfaction with the German missionaries made the Mundas sever their links with them. Instead, they turned to the Catholic mission. The colonial officials and the zamindars came closer to each other in order to smoothen the movement. What developed was a struggle which united the rebels against all Europeans, including Christian missionaries and officials, as well as the Dikus, Dikus, and the landed elements. It was in this context that the Mundas were led by Birsa Munda, whose initial popularity was based on his medicinal and healing powers. The Mundas envisaged ENVISAGED, an ideal and just order which would be free from the internal as well as European exploiters. This search for invincibility against their powerful oppressors made them look upon forest water as something which would make them invincible. There was active participation of women in this movement. On some occasions, there was violence too. However, the movement lacked animosity, ANIMOSITY, vis-a-vis the economically subordinate non-tribal people. The movement of Birsa Munda was ruthlessly suppressed. Birsa was handed and the repressive machinery directed against the rebels to break the rebellion. On the basis of the above discussion, certain conclusions can be drawn. The popular movements we have discussed were directed against colonialism as well as the Indian rich, that is, the money lenders and the zamindars, often identified as Dikus or outsiders. What needs to be emphasized is that the opposition to these Dikus was based on the exploitation perpetrated PERPETRATED by them and not because they were non-tribals. 7.6 Characteristics of movements. The movements had certain characteristics. Number 1. Inherent in most of them was the attempt to look back into the past when life was much better. This included the fury directed against machines during the 1857, that is 1857 rebellion. This was the reason for the struggle for a better present. A tendency existed in some of the movements to attack the established order of the Sahukar, SAHUKAR, Zamindar, and the British colonial administration. For example, Sido and Kanhu tried to replace rent with an annual tribute to them. Another feature linked to the question of looking back into the past and attacking the established order was the restorative character of some of these popular movements. Thus, on occasions, they were led by the traditionally affluent sections whose privileges had been undermined as a result of the colonialization of India. Number 2. Conversely, in some cases, we observe an association with imperialism in a struggle against the landlords and the Sahukars. On occasions, The people learned through their experience to identify anti imperialism as a necessary component of their struggle, like the Mundas. However, on occasions, the illusions of British rule affected popular perceptions, as in the case of the Pabna peasants who wanted to be the Queen's ryots. This obviously undermined the struggle against imperialism. However, what is striking is how some of these popular struggles identified their friends and their enemies. Beginning as an anti imperialist movement, the popular movement, which converged with the 1857 rebellion, gravitated towards anti feudalism, posing problems for the feudal landed sections as we have seen. The anti feudal and pro Christian Birsite Mundas also turned anti imperialists in course of time. Number 3. The popular movements we have discussed envisaged a fair and just order without the exploitation, where everybody would be equal and live happily. This reflected a popular peasant utopia, utopia, and in many cases was associated with the hopes of the dawning of new age, as well as the emergence of messiahs, messiahs, like Sido, Kanhu, and Birsa. Number 4. Another noticeable feature was the association of these popular movements with religion and caste. Given the conditions as well as the multiplicity of both religion and caste in our country, we have seen how on occasions some of these popular movements, although they were centered around class conflict, got affected by the communal and caste politics. Our evidence also points to how, when their position was threatened, the landed feudal sections tried to divert the popular movements along communal lines. Here one can cite the cases of Malabar and Pabna peasant struggles, which were projected as a communal movement by the landlords. While discussing the question of religion and popular movements, we have seen how it also united the popular masses in their struggle with their oppressors, as in Malabar or in Chota Nagpur region. The way in which Christianity, a product of British imperialism itself, became an instrument to fight the feudal as well as the imperialist order obviously indicates how its role changed in a colony like India. Thus, this dual nature of the role of religion should be grasped. Number 5. Another important facet of these popular movements was their close association with lootings and crimes directed against the affluent classes. Although reduced to simple criminality in official records, what needs to be stressed is that these were very much a part of popular movements. The idea of hitting at their exploiters was conditioned by the rationality of setting things right. Consequently, these acts had a popular sanction and on occasions were collective acts. Number 6. The sense of solidarity exhibited by peasants, tribals, and artisans is another characteristic feature. It is worth noting here how territorial boundaries and ethnic bonds transcended transcended in some of the popular movements. For example, while the Pabna movement percolated percolated to other areas outside the district, the Birsa movement united the Mundas and the Kols, along with the absence of any animosity vis-a-vis economically subordinate non-tribal groups. Number 7. And finally, these popular movements served to considerably narrow the gap between a section of the Indian intelligentsia, INTELLIGENTSIA, and the popular masses. We have seen this tendency especially in Bengal. The pro-peasant sympathies were expressed in some newspapers and contemporary literary works like Nil Darpan in 1860. Exercise. Check your progress. 3. Question 1. Which of the following statements are true or false? Statement 1. The planters coerced the peasants to grow indigo. Statement 2. The Indigo Revolt did not get any coverage in the newspapers. Statement 3. The Mopla uprising was given a communal colour by the colonial government. Statement 4. The Kinbis had cordial relations with the Wanis. Statement 5. Mundas attacked economically subordinate non-tribal groups. Question 2. Match the leaders with the movements they led. Option 1, Tomadora. Option 2, Shambhunath Pal. Option 3, Birsa Munda. Option A, Pabna Uprising. Option B, Munda Revolt. Option C, Koya Rebellion. Question 3. Discuss in about 10 lines the basic characteristics of the popular movements during this period. 7.7 Working Class Movements. After discussing the popular movements among peasants, tribals, and artisans, we now take up the role of industrial workers between 1850, that is 1850, and 1900, that is 1900. Who are these industrial workers? Given the overall conditions we have discussed in our general introduction, they were composed primarily of the dispossessed peasants and artisans who had been thrown out of their occupations with the advent of colonialism. These workers became associated with the modern industrial sector, which developed out of the interaction of British colonialism with India. This sector was originally an exclusive preserve of British capitalists and evolved from about the 1840s, that is 1840. The abundance of raw material and cheap labor attracted British capitalists to invest in the tea plantations, jute, coal, mining, and railways from 1839, that is 1839, to early 1850s, that is 1850, and by the turn of the century, major recruitments also took place in the ports. The only industry with which the Indian business class was associated was the textile industry. The Indian business class dominated it. Born around 1850s, that is 1850, it was located chiefly in Bombay and Ahmedabad. What needs to be emphasized is that this modern sector did not lead to full-fledged capitalist development, as it was based on the archaic ARCHAIC foundations of a predominantly feudal economy deliberately preserved by the colonial regime. Moreover, it was not meant to foster the development of India. These features had certain implications. Thus, the workers in the modern sector were left in semi-servile servile conditions. Besides having to work for long hours, 15 to 16 hours a day, with low wages and miserable working conditions, they were even beaten and tortured. The diet was normally worse than what was served to criminals in jails. There is ample evidence in the municipal reports which points out deaths due to illness amongst plantation workers. Given these conditions, the workers were in no position to organize themselves, and what we come across are mostly spontaneous movements aimed at redressing their adverse conditions. 7.7.1 Efforts of the Educated Gentry. GENTRY. The 1850 to 1900 phase saw scattered and unorganized struggles among the workers. They have been characterized as elementary struggles by Sukomal, SUKOMAL, Sen, SEN. In this phase, we come across sections of the educated gentry coming forward to focus on the problems of the workers. In 1870, that is 1870, Sasipada, SASIPADA Banerjee, BANERJEE, a Brahmo Samajist, SAMAJIST, founded the Working Men's Club and published a journal from Baranagar near Calcutta in 1874, that is 1874. The Calcutta Brahmo Samaj, founded in 1878, that is 1878, the Working Men's Mission to propagate the religious morality, etc. among the workers. By 1878, we come across Sorabji, SORABJEE, Sapruji, SAPRUJEE, Bengali, BENGALEE, and Narayan, NARAYAN, Meghaji, MEGHAJEE, Lokhandi, LOKHUNDY, working amidst cotton mill labourers in Bombay. These attempts led to the drafting of a memorandum in 1884, that is 1884, which incorporated demands for a rest day on every Sunday, a half-an-hour break at noon, a 6:30 a.m. to sunset working day, Wages to the workers be paid by the 15th of the month following the month they have worked, and that in case of injury, they should receive full wages till they recovered, and if they got maimed, they should get pension. This memorandum was signed off by about 5,000, that is 5000 workers, and was submitted to the Commission of 1884 appointed by the Government of Bombay. It left its imprint of the first Indian Factories Act of 1891, that is 1891. In 1890, that is 1890, April 24, that is 24, Lokhandi convened another meeting attended by about 10,000, that is 10000 workers. Two women workers spoke at this meeting. A memorial asking for a weekly holiday was drawn up and sent to the Bombay Mill Owners Association. This request was granted on June 10th, 1890, that is 1890, and although perceived as a victory by the workers, it was without any legal sanction and hence it could not be enforced. The demand for a rest day in a week became a popular demand in almost all the industrial centers. 7.7.2 Strikes. Whereas these efforts sought to organize the workers, this phase was marked by the spontaneous workers' movements. We get references to a strike by the River Transport Porters of Bengal in 1853, that is 1853, a coachman's strike in Calcutta in 1862, that is 1862, etc. The first big strike occurred in 1862, that is 1862, when about 1200 labourers, that is 1200, of Howrah railway station went on a strike demanding an 8 hours workday. What is worth noting is that this action preceded the historic May Day movement of the Chicago workers by about 24, that is 24 years, and the strike occurred in a sector which had begun from 1853, that is 1853. This was followed by a number of strike actions. Thus, a big strike took place in the Nagpur Empress Mills in 1877, that is 1877, on the issue of wage rates. Between 1882, that is 1882, and 1890, that is 1890, there were 25, that is 25, strikes in the Bombay and Madras presidencies. What is striking is that in the Bombay presidency, a large number of strikes occurred in factories owned by Indians, that is textile factories. Bengal also witnessed spontaneous strikes centered around higher wage demands and the dismissal of workers. 7.7.3 Characteristics. While surveying these popular struggles, a few points should be mentioned. 1. They served to narrow the gap between the workers and the intelligentsia. The latter got attracted to the workers due to humanitarian notions triggered off by the socio-reform movements like the Brahmo Samaj and contemporary developments in other parts of the world which were taking place along similar lines, example England. This trend continued in the early 20th century. Gandhi's attempt to reach the Ahmedabad mill workers and Anusaya Ben's effort to open up night schools to educate them in 1918, that is 1918, were the manifestations of the same spirit. 2. In many cases, the workers were led by jobbers, sardars, who recruited them and who normally belonged to the same region and caste of the workers. In such cases, the workers' demands were sidetracked as the central focus lay on the struggle between the jobbers and the employers. On other occasions, the workers were led by the intelligentsia. Taken all in all, it appears that the workers in this stage had to look up to outsiders for leadership. Given the fact that the workers were composed of the dispossessed sections of the rural population, and that the colonialization of India prevented any attack on the old feudal values dominated the minds of the workers. Here, even the leadership provided by the intelligentsia failed to produce any serious impact on the workers' organization or their consciousness. The degrading condition of women and child laborers remained completely ignored due to the dominating feudal values. Consequently, most of these popular struggles concentrated on immediate problems faced by the workers like wages, retrenchments, RETRENCHMENTS and a rest day in a week. Nevertheless, despite their shortcomings, we have to acknowledge the heroism of the workers in a period when there was no organized trade unions to come to their rescue. Exercise. Check your progress 4. Question 1. Discuss in about 10 lines the emergence of the working class in India. Question 2. Discuss in about 5 lines the problems of the working class. Question 3. Match the year with the strikes in which they took place. Option 1. 1853, that is 1853. Option 2. 1862, that is 1862. Option 3. 1877, that is 1877. Option A. Nagpur Empress Mills. Option B. River Transporters. Option C. Railway. Question 4. Which of the following statements are right or wrong? Statement 1. Popular struggles narrowed the gap between the workers and the intelligentsia. Statement 2. The jobbers never sidetracked the workers' demands. Statement 3. The degrading condition of women and child labourers remained ignored during this period. Statement 4. Coachmen's strike took place in Calcutta, 1862.
7.8. Let us sum up. The colonial policies adversely affected the peasants, tribals, and artisans. They were now subjected to dual oppression, that is, oppression by colonial state and the internal exploiters of Indian society, like landlords and moneylenders. Very often, opposition to this oppression resulted in popular uprisings. However, in official language, these uprisings were described as dacoities, spelled as DACOITIES, riots, rebellion, and so on. But in reality, these uprisings were manifestations of protest by the exploited sections of Indian society. These uprisings came up at different intervals of time and in different regions. At times, due to the complex character of Indian society, the colonial state as well as the internal exploiters both labeled those uprisings as manifestations of communalism and or casteism. Basically, however, these were the struggles waged by the have-nots against the haves. These uprisings failed, but they did create an anti-British feeling and prepared the ground for the mass struggles at the national level. Another impact of British rule was the creation of a new class in Indian society, the working class. Although this class was not organized, we find a number of isolated strikers towards the end of the 19th century. These strikes attempted to gain better working conditions and wages. Many of these strikes took place in factories owned by the Indians. This suggested that the workers are exploited by both the British and the Indian factory owners. In fact, the ground for what major working class movements was laid during this phase. In due course, these economic struggles by the working class have added strength to the political struggle during the national movement. 7.9. Keywords. Class differentiation, the process by which in objective terms one class economically begins to differ from another class and also begins to see itself as such. Customary rights, rights which have come up because of certain historical factors and so are accepted as a part of tradition, like right to use pasture lands. Dual role of religion in popular movements, the process by which in popular movement religion enabled people to come together, but also on the other hand, because of its own limited world view, restricted the scope of the movement. Forced labor, the use of force rather than legal or traditional right to extract labor. Jobbers, sardars, traditionally people who recruit workers in a mill. Occupancy right, right to particular piece of land. Peasant utopia, the ideal belief in a future society amongst peasants. Peasant movement. A peasant is a cultivator or owner cultivator of land. The size of this land can vary. Historically, peasants have rebelled against established authority of landlords and state. The basis of their coming together has been religion or religious symbols because of their scope was limited. Polarization, clear difference. Popular movements, movements in which people cutting across tribal, peasant, working class, or middle class barriers participated. Sexual exploitation of women, discrimination and harassment of women on the basis of sex. Social differentiation, process by which the peasant society was differentiated along economic and social line. Tenants at will. After the British gave right of property to landlords, which they did not have legally earlier, the tenants were at the mercy of the landlords. Tribal movements. Tribe is a group of people tied together by blood relationship. Tribal movements were collective protests of these units against established authority. Uprising, upheaval, UPHEAVAL,